Right, so what we're gonna start off with is we're eventually gonna be building our own rooms. Before we do so, though, kind of wanted to give you folks some experience, yeah, in a like just kind of a quick tutorial. Right now, we're just gonna focus on building. If you notice, like this is like a really simple structure we have here. So technically, we have two rooms going on. We have our main room over here. We do have what will be eventually a restroom or bathroom over here. And then this is going to be what we're calling a hall. This would be more like, I guess, where you would drop off your shoes and stuff like that. Yeah, but basically, if you notice, like we have our walls in place. We do have a lot of the things that you would need for like a actual dwelling, right? So we do have our floors and our entrances and also our window. You may notice that there are a bunch of ceilings missing currently. I can actually bring those back. So this is just so we can kind of see inside, yeah. But I'm putting those in layers. I'm gonna have you folks do that as well, yeah. Anyway, so real quickly, this is what we're going for here. I'm gonna go through the process of like building your structure, yeah. So let me take all of this and we will say goodbye. Okay, and then let me kind of clean all these out, unfortunately, as well, yeah. So we'll wipe all of those out. All right. So again, we're gonna be building that structure that we kind of just viewed right there. We'll start off with the main room, and what is actually gonna happen is I'll give you the dimensions, kind of work through the process of putting that all together, and then I'm going to give you folks the dimensions and locations for all of your. For your bathroom and for your hall, so for the other rooms, and you're going to be placing those on your own, yeah. And then we'll kind of come back and then talk about adding our doorways and our windows, yeah. That's gonna be basically the breadth of this particular tutorial. Okay, so I'm gonna start off. I am gonna keep my channel box up for now. So a couple of things to think about, yeah, when you're building your room is like dimensions, yeah. So what we're gonna do here is we're definitely gonna start off with something that is like um, pretty significant, yeah. So I'm going to go into my create menu, polygon primitives. Because we are building a room or aka house structure or whatever, we want to make sure that like our we start off with our floor, yeah. So I'm going to go in and kind of use the plane for that. Now planes are kind of unique, so I'm going to click on the square next to plane. And the main thing that I want you folks to notice about plane, if you've ever used this, and I know some of you folks are probably familiar with this already, is that a plane only has two dimensions, your width and your height. It doesn't have a depth. So what that means is like when you create something like this, it's going to be like paper thin, very unusual, and doesn't really exist in real life, but it helps when we're kind of building the room, yeah. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to be switching this up right here, and we're going to go with a dimension of 12 feet by 20, yeah. So if you notice, I'm going to jot those numbers in. The width is going to be 12. The height, which basically kind of works actually as our depth, because your plane will be lying flat on the ground, we're going to put that at 20. Yeah, so again, 12 feet by 20 feet over here. The other thing you may want to check is make sure your width and your height divisions are set to 1. If you notice, I have these set currently at 10. I'm not sure if that's the default. But yeah, what that'll do is that'll give you more edges within your plane. We're not going to worry about that for now. We're just going to keep these at 1 so that it's a nice flat plane with no separations. Okay, now once you have your dimensions in, yeah, so again, 12 by 20, and then your width and height divisions are both at 1. You can go ahead and click on create. Okay, this is going to be our floor. Now there's two places where you can name it. You can either go to your outliner here, or you can go to your channel box. Either way, if you type in floor right there, okay, is automatically gonna change in the other, yeah. So change the channel box, there it is in our outliner, perfect. Okay, now the other thing we're gonna start doing is we're gonna use those dimensions, yes. So remember, again, we're going 12 by 20. We're gonna start building our walls. We're gonna start naming them in terms of north, south, east, and west, yeah. So we'll keep north here, south, so that would be east over here, and then west over here, yeah. So let's start with our north wall. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to create menu, polygon primitives. I am this time not going to choose plane. I'm going to go to the cube, yeah, and cube just because that adds a little bit more thickness. For the walls, we definitely want to add a little bit more realism, yeah. Whereas the plane, we just kind of need something to like cover the ground. So I'm going to click on the square next to cube, okay, and I'm going to keep those dimensions that we utilized earlier in mind, yeah. So if you remember, this is going to be the north wall. and the dimensions over here is going to be 12 feet in length. Yeah, so we can utilize that information. Yeah, so your width is going to be 12. The other thing we're going to keep in mind is the height. So usually when we're building a room, we want to make sure that people are able to walk around comfortably. Yeah, so you don't really want to have a room that's any shorter than, like, let's say about 8 feet. Yeah, so we'll put in 8 for the height right there. Okay, and last but not least, we're thinking about depth. Depth is going to end up being the thickness of the wall. Yeah, that's good. So that's what's going to be going in the Z direction. So this way. So we'll keep it like maybe about half a foot. Yeah, so we'll put that at 0.5. Yeah, 0.5. So 0.5, like if you do the math, that comes out to about 6 inches. Okay, and then the other thing we're going to do is check your width, height, and depth divisions. Yeah, those should also be set at 1. Again, we don't want any extra edges. We'll leave that for some of our more advanced things as we go along. Okay, so again, 12, 8, 0.5. If you got 1, 1, 1 for your width, height, and depth divisions, you can then go ahead and click on create. Okay, and there's our wall. Kind of like with the plane, if you notice, it shows up right in the center of your grid. That's pretty normal, yeah. Just be careful with this, because sometimes you'll create an object and you'll be like, it may be overlap something else that you don't see there, and then you may just end up making like multiples of it. We'll immediately name this. Yeah, so here's our first cube. We are going to be sticking with our naming scheme. Yeah, so this is going to end up being our north wall. So if you can name that in your outliner or your channel box, doesn't really matter. Okay, now we can kind of take a look at your north wall. You may notice that it's not exactly what we would call yeah, it's not exactly what we would call like 8-foot wall. Right now it's like more 4 feet above ground, 4 feet below ground. So let's make sure that this is on the ground, right? So we can jump into your translate Y, yeah? And remember, again, anytime you bring in a new object, it's going to be like at the halfway point. So what that means basically is we have 4 feet above, we have 4 feet below. So you translate Y, we're going to make sure that we're moving that up by 4 units, yeah? So 4 feet. So translate Y, type in 4, hit return. Okay, and then now your wall is like on the ground at least. Yeah, so that's a positive. Now the other thing too is, like, this is a weird room, right? We have a like kind of this barrier in the center, right? We actually want this in the back. Yeah, so again, we're going to do a little bit of math. If you remember, from from front to back, that's about 20 feet right there. Okay, so from here to here, if this is our halfway point, that means we've already kind of moved back 10 feet. We're just gonna have to move back 10 more feet. Yeah, and remember, we're going towards the back. Yeah, the north wall is going to be towards the back. So we are going to be working on a translate Z. To push this back right now, right here it's set at perfectly 0. If we're going to push this back, it is a negative number, so we're going to push that back -10. Yeah, so anytime we're pushing back, it'll be a negative number in the Z direction. Yeah, so that'll get us to our north wall. Okay, should be all good, nice and set over there. Okay, now the other thing we can do is, because we have a north wall for a rectangular floor plan, we can also use that north wall as the basis for a south wall. Yeah, so you can duplicate this. Real easy to do. Just make sure you have your north wall selected. We're then going to do Command D. Yeah, we'll do a Command D. In your outliner, you notice now we have north wall, and then we have north wall 1. If you look at your north wall, you'll notice it's kind of like has that little dotted look to it. All that means is that north wall and new north wall 1 are sharing the exact same space. We definitely don't want that to continue, so we're then going to go into here, rename this to south wall. Yeah, so if you can go ahead and do that in again your outliner, your channel box, no matter. Okay, and then we'll have our 2 separate ones. Okay, now again, remember our basically, it looks good translate Y, right? It's already on the ground, but what is probably the issue is your south wall and your north wall are like right on top of each other. North wall should be pushed back, south wall should actually be pushed forward, right? So remember our original location, south wall is right here at 0. If you want to get it to over here, that means this is from -10, we then go to 0. This is 20 feet long, so then -10, 0, +10. Yeah, so for translate Z, all you have to do is just type in 10. You don't even need the plus sign. Okay, and then that'll get you your south wall. Yeah, so nice and easy. Yeah, super simple. We got 2 walls in here. Okay, we're on our way. Now of course, now we can't stop there. Okay, we have 4 sides, 2 walls. Okay, that just looks like a window, kind of like a wind tunnel to me, not too good. So we're gonna start adding our east wall. Yeah, so we'll start off next with our east wall. So again, we're gonna go back into your create menu. We are gonna go back to your square next to cube. Now, one thing you're gonna notice in here is that it kind of gives you the most recent dimensions. Yeah, so remember when we're making the north wall, yeah, 12.8 and 0.5, those all match up. Okay, we're now going to switch things up a bit. Yeah, so if you remember, width is going from left to right, and that one makes a lot of sense for these corners because this is 12 feet long. Yeah, however, now we're going to go from front to back. Yeah, so what that means is your width is actually going to switch up. This is going to be 0.5. Yeah, so we're going to have your depth going from left to right, because we want our depth to be longer, because that's going to go from your front to the back. Yeah, so for your depth, okay, remember our units, right? Now I will say we're gonna have to make a modification on this, but for now, based on the information that we know, right, the floor is supposed to be 20 feet long, or sorry, 20 feet long in the depth direction or Z direction. So we're gonna input that information. Yeah. Okay, now once you have all of that, again, we just kind of switched your width and your depth out, yeah, with your new dimensions for this wall. We can then go ahead and click on create. Okay, again, we'll have some of the same issues that we did with the north wall, right? Which is number one, it's submerged. Let me go ahead and label this. Hopefully you're also labeling it, right? Okay, so right off the bat, we know, like, okay, halfway submerged. Okay, this wall is exactly the same height, so we know to translate y, right? We just need to push it up 4 feet. Yeah, so 4 units up, so translate y becomes 4. The other thing is, because this is the east wall, we want it right over here. Okay, remember, this is kind of like super simple math, right? So from here we just got to push it over this many units, and it needs to be positive, right? So we're going to the right, so that's going to be a positive number. If you remember, from left to right, yeah, our width is going to be 12. So right now we're at 0. Okay, half of 12 would be 6, right? So you translate x. Yeah, so this time we're going to go with translate x. We're going to put in a nice little 6 number, and our wall will be there, and we almost got it. One thing I do want you folks to notice, though, is take a look at your corners. What you're going to notice is that they don't exactly line up. Now, they overlap. Yeah, you guys can definitely see they overlap, but the corners don't quite reach. Yeah, so it has a little bit of an odd look to it. One thing I want you folks to consider is that with this east wall, we did the math correctly, right? Because our floor did say that this is 20 units long. Yeah, and if you notice, it does match up with the floor, so the green line kind of goes all the way to there, and that goes all the way to there. One thing I didn't have you account for, though, is that this 20-foot wall, okay, as still has to account for this extra thickness. Yeah, so if we take a look at this wall right here, okay, remember this wall is 0.5 width, so that means this little 0.25 or half of 0.5 is kind of hanging off past the floor. Yeah, so we actually want this east wall to be 0.25 longer here, and also 0.25 longer over here. Yeah, so again, this is 20. Okay, if we're going to account for that, then we got to go 0.25, 0.25. Yeah, so 20 plus 0.25 plus 0.25 is going to be 20.5. Yeah, so we're going to go with 20.5. So to make sure we did that, we can actually retroactively change the length of this wall. So I'm going to go, and you probably won't have to do this, but if you can find your polycube 2, yeah, so I have to scroll, you probably won't have to scroll. But if you can go and find the input section, go and find polycube 2. It may be actually 3, it depends. Yeah, so go double check, depends on like whether you duplicated your previous wall or not. But yeah, if you click on this polycube information over here, what will happen is now all of a sudden you have all of your input data that you put in for this wall. Okay, now again, we went with 20. 20 was good, but it's not quite reaching both ends. We actually want to account for our extra 0.25 on both sides, so we're going to put in 20.5 instead. Okay, and what that'll do is that'll then make it flush. Yeah, so that'll have it be nice and flush with the other north wall and your south wall. Yeah. All right, okay, so that's our east wall. Our east wall looks great. Again, very symmetrical on both ends, so now we can kind of duplicate this wall over here. Yeah, so you can do your command D, yeah, and then we're gonna end up with our east wall and our east wall one, just like before. Let's make sure that we don't have two east walls. Yeah, that'd be very weird. Okay, so instead we're gonna go with west wall. So I'll rename that in the outliner this time. And the other thing we're looking for is we want to make sure that this is now on the opposite end, right? So we had to translate x is 6, yeah, so 6. We started off at 0. We actually want it over here, which is a negative x, right? So again, we're cutting that 12 and a half. So that's going to be minus 6 over there. Okay, awesome. There is our west wall, yeah. All right, and then we're just about done. Again, now we do have a little bit of a situation though, because we have our floors, we have our walls, nice and labeled. Yeah, did a good job of that. But we also are gonna be needing like a ceiling. Yeah, so that'll be our last step. What I'm gonna ask you to do here is you can select your floor. Yeah, you can click on it actually directly in the grid. But you may not notice it being selected. You can actually check the bottom though. If you see the green line, that'll be your indicator. Yeah. Our floor, exact same dimensions, right? It's not tapered or anything. So we're gonna take that floor. You can duplicate that. You're gonna end up with floor number 1. Of course, immediately, yeah, we're gonna get in the habit of labeling things. So I'm gonna label that ceiling. I'm then gonna go to the move tool. Okay, and for your translate Y, this time your ceiling is completely on the ground, right? So remember how tall our walls were, yeah? So this is a little bit different than when we did the walls because we had 4 feet kind of sticking up already, and then so we just had to do translate Y of 4. This time though, because it's on the ground, we have to do the full 8, yeah? So if you put in 8 for that, it'll jump up to the 8-foot mark, yeah? All right. Okay, so here is our here's the beginning of our room. Okay. Now, one thing I did want to kind of point out, and because I know some of you folks may be thinking this is like, you may be wondering why I put you through that, when you could actually do something like this, where I just were to go to a cube. I know my dimensions, so if I put the width at 12, put the height at 8, and put the depth at 20, and I created that, yeah, and then I just put this up on the ground. Okay, if I put these side by side, from the outside, these look very, very identical, right? So you may be thinking like, okay, well, I did that in um, a little bit less than like 20 seconds, right? So what the heck? Why am I making you do something like that? Yeah, but here's the main reason why. Okay, so I want you folks to think of yourselves as like Godzilla or something, right? So let's say you're Godzilla. You wanna terrorize like some people. Okay, if you wanted to terrorize these people, you could easily just kind of come over here, grab the roof, and pull this off, right? And so you tear off the roof, look inside, and say, "I had little people," right? And then you can kind of go in there and like kind of almost play with them like they're dolls. Yeah. Now, if you take a look at this particular object, right, same dimension, so it looks the same from the outside. However, if I click on it, it's gonna act like one object. Yeah, it's gonna act completely like that. Also, I could possibly go into face mode, select the roof right here, but if I move it, I'm just gonna make it taller. Maybe I could delete it. So if I click on delete, I can do that as well. But this is where you start to notice like the major difference, right? So if you take a look at this one that we created, right? We have nice thickness for the walls. We can clearly view things based on our angle, right? Whereas if you were to kind of look in here, we have the darkness, yeah. And basically, this is my way of like indicating like, hey, every face, yeah, which is these guys right here. So this is a face. So these are all faces out here. Each face has a front and a back, yeah. And the back is gonna be black, yeah, which is kind of an indicator like, okay, if you may have flipped something inside out or you're looking at the wrong side, yeah. So usually you want these on the interior, but you'll notice like between these two, yeah, these are paper thin. They're not as versatile obviously because you can't like move things around, yeah. So it's very different of an experience if you were to be like if you were to be Godzilla, yeah. So let's make things more interesting as Godzillas. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump back. But again, that's kind of why we're breaking this down is into those individual pieces, is so that um, we can more easily manipulate our room. Okay. Now the last thing I'm going to ask you to do here is, you notice like when I tried to get into the room, I had to do a grab of the roof or the ceiling and drag it up, right? So, for our purposes, however, we don't want to have to be constantly like opening and closing. Yeah. So, our next step is going to be starting to put things in layers, and by doing so, these layers will help us to like hide things where we can have like a nice view of what we're creating, particularly when you're like doing your decorating, interior decorating, where you're starting to put in like your furniture and stuff, without having to do any kind of movements. Yeah, because anything you move, you probably have to put back, right? So we're going to set this up. Those of you who are familiar with Photoshop, yeah, we're going to be utilizing layers. Yes, Maya also does use layers. If you notice right now, I do have the ceiling selected. That's the main, I think that's the main thing that we want to like kind of hide and show, yeah, but mostly hide when we're putting things together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to ceiling, make sure that's highlighted. I'm going to go to my layers section, yeah, so this display tab right over here. I'm going to go to layers, and then I'm going to choose create layer from selected. And what this is going to do is create a new layer down over here. Okay, your ceiling is automatically going to be included in that layer. And here's how we know. There is a V over here that's for visible. If you click on it, it will then, the V will disappear. So will your ceiling. Yeah, now your ceiling is still there. If I click on V once again, there it is. Yeah. Okay, now, of course, layer one, it's gonna get messy, right? Especially if we decide like, okay, every single part of our room needs its own layer. So what we're gonna do now is label it. So I'm gonna double click on layer one. Instead of having this labeled as layer one, I'm gonna call this ceiling layer. Yeah, notice I am keeping the layer term, because Maya, for whatever reason, if you name something ceiling over here, if I just say, oh, you're going to be ceiling as well and try to save, it's going to tell me that already exists. Yeah, so just as an easy fix, we'll just put there. The other thing too is, if you can always make sure instead of spaces, if you can put this underscore. The underscore is not so, is something that Maya accepts when you're naming. If you leave a space still and try to save, it's gonna tell you it does not like that. Yeah, so it needs to be alphanumeric. Okay, so again, I'm gonna put my underscore there, and it won't complain. There's a few other things in here that you can mess around with, but we're not gonna play around with too much. I did kind of want to show you though real quick. So we do have template and reference. Yeah. So these guys are more for like, if you create something, you really like how something looks, but you don't want to accidentally like mess with it. Yeah, you would kind of drop into here, and then like you'll be able to see everything. You just won't be able to like move them around. Yeah, so that does get helpful at a certain point. Also, if you take a look on the color over here, you may notice like you can add colors. Yeah, what that does is it just kind of for like your selection. Yeah, it'll keep that outline. Yeah, so I'm not gonna mess with that, but you definitely can. The main thing I wanted in there is the layer. All right, so that's our ceiling layer. To make sure that it works, again, we're gonna click on the V to hide that. Okay, and then I'm gonna ask you to do the same thing with the other items in that make up your room. Yeah, and the main reason why I'm asking you to do that is eventually you are gonna be taking a lot of renders. And these ceilings and walls are definitely going to get in the way. Not so much the floor, but we are going to make a floor layer just to keep things like consistent. Yeah. Okay, so here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Okay, if you can go ahead and create an empty create layers for each of your other what's it room pieces. Yeah, so I just created my west wall there. Boom, there it is. Okay, and then kind of go down the line. Yeah, so here comes east wall. Yeah, create layer from selected. Okay, and just kind of work your way through it. Okay, so we're gonna have one for each. Okay, and again, this will be super helpful. I think your walls, some people may want to just kind of do like one layer for all of the walls. I would probably suggest do multiples though, just because it gives you a little bit more versatility, again, when you're kind of taking renders or photos of your scenes. Yeah. Okay, let's see, south wall, that works. Okay, and then one more, north wall. Oh no, two more. Okay, so pretty simple, right? we're just casually naming things, um, but also accurately. And then the last one I'm gonna mess with is the floor layer. This one again, least used layer for sure, but it does help to keep things again organized. Yeah, so they all have their own little thing. Now, of course, if you click on all the V's next to this, you can completely hide everything. Um, so that's an option, I guess. But yeah, again, this gives you that versatility. I'm gonna actually leave all of the visibility on except for the ceiling layer. Yeah, and that'll kind of get you ready for the next portion. All right. Okay. So here's what you folks are gonna do is you're going to now start dropping in the rest of your you're going to kind of start dropping in the rest of your rooms. Yeah, so this is our main room. If you notice, the naming scheme is not really specific to the main room, but I'm going to ask you to build the rest. Yeah. Now if you take a look at your layout for that, okay, you're going to be doing your BRs. Yeah, so that'll correspond to anything that is a bathroom. Also, remember we are doing things with planes and with cubes. Yeah, so if you see two dimensions with a width and a height, and that's it, that means that's a plane. If you see three dimensions, where you see the width, the height, and the depth, that just means that hey, I'm working with my cubes. Yeah, so for the most part, you're gonna be working with cubes, but if you can make your bathroom, also your hall, yeah, so your suffix for that is going to be just hall. If you can drop those off, and then if you can also create your layers for those. Yeah, so if you want to, you can just kind of pause at this screen right here, and then kind of put all of that together, and then we'll pick up on the rest after after you kind of get all those pieces in. Okay.